Konnichiwa. We're just back from 3 weeks in Japan, and Japan is really riding high on a tourist boom at the moment, so it might be on your bucket list. I'd love to share with you all the sketches that I did as we travelled. And if you're an artist about to go on holiday, I hope to inspire you to sketch as you go. If you're about to go to Japan, I hope some of my sketches will give you a foretaste of what you're going to see. I will share my sketches, but I'll also share how I did these very last 2 pages in my sketchbook. And it was this technique of using line, watercolour, and then watercolour brush pens that I used pretty much throughout the holiday. So that might give you some ideas. My name's Liz Chaderton. I'm a watercolour artist based in Berkshire. Every week I share tips and tricks that I wish I'd known about ages ago. And this week I wanted to share with you my passion for sketching as I travel. Everywhere we went in Japan had these wonderful little origami cranes. They were in our hotel rooms. We went to Hiroshima and the Peace Park was full of origami cranes that had been made by children all around the world. Then as the bus dropped us at the airport on the final time, and I got off, the driver gave me a little crane. I have no idea why, but it was very kind of him. We're back and I have 2 pages left in my travel journal. I'm going to show you the whole journal, but I thought this would be perfect, filling the last 2 pages. And this way, I thought I could show you some of my techniques at the same time. This is the equipment I took with me, and this will give me a good way of just showing you what I did. I took this Stabilo 88 pen and I ended up using this with watercolour most of the time. I never pack a pencil because when I'm travelling I don't have time to be indecisive. Most of my sketches take tops of half an hour, because I'm travelling with my husband and I don't think it's fair on him if I spend ages faffing around doing really detailed sketches. I'm just trying to capture the essence of wherever we are. I'll do a few more cranes and then I'll show you what happens next. Let's do this one. And at this point, it doesn't look great, does it? But if you grab a water brush, you can start to develop a little bit of tone just by smushing the lines. It immediately brings that little bit of dimension to your drawing and starts to bring it to life. So I like to do my rough sketch, haven't bothered with that pencil, let's just look, and then get some water on it as soon as possible, because if someone looks over your shoulder, it doesn't look half as awful. You can always look just when it's at its muckiest and you think it's going to be better soon, I promise you. So it's a lovely property of the pen that the line is still visible, but some of that ink moves and you can do tone and pen all at the same time. But quite often I will do this sort of tonal underpainting and then I will grab little watercolours, and I took these Viva colour sheets with me because I just think they're such fun and such gorgeous colours. I'm working in a homemade concertina sketchbook, and if you didn't see how I made it, I did record the whole thing, so I'll put a link to that. But I'm working across 2 pages here. Some places I only work across 1 page, sometimes it's across 3. I find it super versatile to work with. This chrome yellow and yellow ochre is lovely. But if you've never used a water brush before, all I'm doing is squeezing here to release the water and picking up the colour. And then, rather than taking kitchen towel with me, I took the end of an old sports stock that could go around my wrist, so I didn't lose it, and I used it to clean off my brush. When I'm sketching like this, I'm not terribly worried about staying within the lines, and in fact, going outside the lines usually looks a lot better. The colour sheets are very vibrant. They are dye-based, so they will fade eventually, but of course it's in a sketchbook, so it doesn't matter at all. It's not being exposed to lots of light. Now you can see these colour sheets, they are quite mangled because I've absolutely used them. They have got a mixing area at the back, so they don't last forever, but they are fabulous for travelling. So another way of using them is to put water down, and then they do spread beautifully through a wet area. The paper in here is 300 grams per square metre cold press watercolour paper, and I really like that for my homemade journals. And when I'm sketching, I'm trying to capture the place we are, but I'm also trying to capture the feel of the place. So when I'm sketching on the move, I quite often, as I say, do these lines, maybe add some colour. Once it's dry, I grab these pens, which are dual tip watercolour pens, just in greys, because the great thing about them is that you can add a bit of tone. They are very transparent. If you want to add just a suggestion of light and dark, then it's a great way of adding that without adding extra water to the painting. But you can also blend them with water if you need to. Just going to put some of the fold lines just to make this look more like origami. So the important thing is not to fiddle too much, because this is a sketchbook, it's spontaneous, and that's what gives it its charm, and also just cements all your memories from your travels. And then we'll look at the rest of that sketchbook. On the whole, I think it's survived the journey pretty well. I made suminagashi papers to cover this. Suminagashi is Japanese marbling, and I really liked that picture. Managed to bash a few edges, but it survived. And I did it so that it was Japanese and started backwards, what seems like backwards to us. It is really funny. The first few pages feel very tentative when I look at them now. They are not my favourite ones, and it's as I got into the holiday, we were away for 3 weeks, everything started to flow and I relaxed. That's, I guess, why you need to be on holiday. This was a wonderful pagoda in Tokyo. It's not a great picture at all. I was perched on a very uncomfortable, in fact, no, I couldn't sit down. And in Japan, it's not acceptable just to sort of sit on the floor or sit on a step. So I was sort of trying to do this perched. We went to a capybara cafe, and very, very glad to meet this capybara. I decided to stick bits in as we went because lots of the little paper bits and tickets were just so beautiful. I don't know if you're aware, but in Japan, all over the place, you get stamps like this. And they were introduced in the 1930s to try and encourage people to travel more. So you can hunt them out, whether they are in museums or in railway stations or whatever. They didn't print terribly well onto the watercolour paper, unfortunately, but you will see stamps here. This was the wrapping from a taiyaki, which is like a little waffle, a sweet waffle in the shape of a fish. And I just did little drawings. We went to a manga place. We went to a museum that had lucky cats in. And I just was starting to kind of warm up. And then I did start to relax into my holiday and warm up. And this was at another gorgeous shrine. And I did it in exactly the way I've shown you. So this is with that Stabilo 88 pen, And then with the water brushes, this is at Meiji Jingu in Tokyo, with one of these wonderful big torii gates. They're sort of usually vermilion. This actually was sort of, was it wooden or was it concrete? Can't remember. As I was sketching this, we were in a little cafe just here. Gust of wind blew my pens all over the ground here, and everyone very kindly gathered them up for me. We went up the Sky Tower, or the Sky Tree in Tokyo, and you could see Mount Fuji from the top. Oh, that was such a surprise. It was a really clear day. And for me, sometimes I like to sketch places that we're visiting, but sometimes I like to just spot something interesting. So this is a taiyaki, and that was a little recipe. We actually went to cook our own taiyaki. They are sort of, say, fish-shaped waffles, and traditionally they have red bean jam in the middle. I don't like red bean jam. It's a bit claggy as far as I'm concerned, but now they put in Nutella or custard and they are delicious. This is at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo, and it's one of the guard towers, and it was a nice quiet corner with a bench. There was definitely a distinct lack of benches in Japan for the artists to sit on, but this was another beautiful shrine and a giant Buddha. And then we went nearer to Fuji, and Fuji-san from Kawachigo, which is where we were staying. This was the view. We were glamping, and our glamping pod was pretty much like a shipping container, but the view out of the front door was that. Stunning it was. So this is actually watercolour, no pen in this, and I wanted to try and capture the mess of the town, which was quite ugly with all the electricity lines, with the beauty and majesty of Fuji behind. And it was clear sky, and you could see it was really windy up there because you could see the snow blowing off the top. On the whole, things are painted in situ. I sat there with my breakfast and painted this very quickly because it was blooming cold actually. It was down to -2 overnight. Sometimes you need to do things afterwards. So we'd been to the temple and we had seen a painting of Daruma, and I joked that it looked like rather an angry Santa, but Daruma is actually the god of discipline and perseverance. So you fall down 7 times, but you stand up 8. And I did this after the case. On the whole, if I can do it in situ, that's better. We saw Chinese macaques, which were fantastic. And then we went to the temple of 1,000 gates. So it's 1,000 of these wonderful red gates, and you walk up through them, and the light is all orange and vermilion, and it was wonderful. And then we went right to the top of the mountain, and as we got up there, all our phones pinged, and it was, what's that all about? Trying to decipher it and using Google Translate. And it said there'd been an earthquake, and we're like, what? And then it transpired it was a test of their emergency procedures, so that was fine. And here we are at Koyomizu. I really do think it's worth making yourself a few notes because you will not remember as you travel. And again, trying to find a little quiet spot away from some very busy crowds. I was surprised just how many tourists there are throughout Japan. We sat just opposite this wonderful gate, and there was a very handy coffee van, and they did toasted sandwiches. So we sat and ate toasted sandwiches, and I sketched this. And that's the brilliant thing about sketching on holiday. It cements those memories, so I can taste that grilled cheese sandwich because I sat there. I was really in the moment. I was concentrating, and just next to us there was another British, I think three Brits sitting on the table next to us. They were very posh, and I was listening to their conversation. But you see, you remember that because you've been there in the moment. Taken a quick photo on my phone, I don't think I would have that richness of memory. And this is the end of my first side, and we had been remarking on these kitsunes, which are foxes, and they all had these sort of bibs, some very ornate, some not, and lots had little sort of crochet beanie hats. And we looked up, and this is a votive. You make these hats and put these bibs on. It was actually to ask the gods to protect your children. I found that whole mixture between lots of superstition. At all the temples there would be fortune tellers and all this, and then the technology and the organization and the modernness of Japan. It was a real mixture. So did put a little expandable pocket in this, and I'm so glad I did, because I've saved tickets, interesting bits of paper, interesting plants. Look at that, isn't that gorgeous? That was one of the stamps I did. So let's turn over. We went to an island called Naoshima, which is an old industrial island that in the late 1980s, they decided to rejuvenate it through art. So different celebrated international architects and artists contributed to the museums and the art projects on Naoshima. This is by Yayoi Kusama, who is famous for her giant pumpkins. And if you're on Instagram, I bet you've seen that on Instagram. It sits facing the sea, and it's this giant pumpkin. I guess people are about that big. And there are a few of those around the island. From Naoshima, we moved on to Hiroshima, that I've already mentioned, and it was really good to sit quietly over the river from the atomic bomb dome to sketch, because it helped me process lots of the information I'd seen. We'd been to the Peace Museum, which has really harrowing pictures and stories of the consequences of the bomb. Just off Hiroshima is an island called Miyajima, and this floating torii gate has to be one of the most famous sights of Japan. It was heaving, it was so crowded until, you know, from this side, walk 200 yards round, and this side was lovely and quiet. And I think this is my favourite sketch of the whole book. We also went to visit a place called Seijo, which has 7 sake breweries, and all the sake breweries have these wonderful tall red brick towers for when they are steaming the rice to make sake. So that was a brilliant day out. But just as I've been working across pages like this and working with pen and watercolour, sometimes it's nice to stop. We stopped for coffee and a cake. This is a special sakura, which is cherry blossom custard cake, and it had real cherry blossoms on the top. So I did a very quick sketch of it, peeled off the cherry blossoms, stuck those in, and this was at Fukuoka at the art museum there, which was really an excellent art museum. And these are some more of the stamps that I'd used, and there was just a particular tree that I really liked at one of the temples, so I added the tree in afterwards from a photo. Then we went to this place called Himeji Castle, which is the White Heron Castle, the most beautiful castle in Japan. And this was stunning. When we got there, it was lovely because it was very peaceful. It was flat calm underneath. This was a pond rather than a river, with giant koi in it, and you got this perfect reflection. And I sat and sketched it, and had some very broken English, broken Japanese conversations about watercolour. The fun of sitting and sketching is that it can break that barrier and get you out of your tourist bubble. And nearby was the very first lighthouse in Japan. It's now about 5 kilometres from the sea, but I thought that was worth immortalising. Our final day We were in Osaka and we just got the local train to go to Kobe, which, if you may recall, suffered an awful earthquake back in the late 90s, I'm going to say. And we went up on these cable cars, and I'm very glad that we weren't in them when there was an earthquake. I went up to Herb Gardens, and we were just a little bit too early to see the cherry blossom, but there were a few trees out, so I did do a little cherry blossom. And then this is my final page, completed at home, to fill up the last 2 pages with those origami cranes that seem to pop up everywhere we went. And that is my 3 weeks of Japan in my sketchbook. Just before we finish, I want to show you this. I knew that when you visited shrines, people collect blessings which are called goshuen, and you need a special book to collect them in. I had not appreciated that in Japan your book, I thought they would just be a normally bound book, but they are concertina books. So I thought I'd been super clever doing a back to front concertina book to go. Got to Japan, everyone's got back to front concertina books. So this is special paper that accepts the ink, and each blessing, I've got a little explanation of it. You've got the shrine that you visited, there is a blessing, there is the date, and so forth. These are painted with a brush. This calligraphy is done in front of you. The monk paints your blessing, and then it's stamped with that red stamp. And I just thought these were stunning. Let me just flip you through them. Absolutely beautiful. And I just found the calligraphy fascinating to watch. Often people are going around with 2 notebooks, one to get the stamps from the train stations and the museums and things, and one to get the stamps from the shrines. And this is your a record of your spiritual journey, and the other record of your, well, I guess, temporal. I have popped in some things that I collected en route. These little bits of rice paper are put in to stop anything smudging. And the final 2 I got, which I must stick in, are from the temple with that beautiful red arch bridge. And they are separate because they have embroidery. So the paper is embroidered with, well, sumo, and here with the lucky cat. So I didn't quite fill my book, so maybe I will have to go back. I hope you've enjoyed that quick whiz through. If you get the chance to visit Japan, grab it with both hands. If you get the chance to sketch while you're on holiday or travelling, whether it's somewhere just local for a weekend or somewhere a bit more exotic, please grab it, because your sketchbook will become your absolute favourite souvenir, and it helps you be in the moment. And even the most scrappy, half-finished sketch, you can always add more later, but even just doing 5-10 minutes in situ helps you be present, helps you remember what it smelt like, what you heard, what you saw, what it felt like. And when you look at that, all those memories will come rushing back,